Cool. All right. Sorry. So, Solgold. I assume a lot of you will have heard a little bit about us, but let me give you a very brief update. So Solgold's listed on the London Stock Exchange and also in Toronto. We're now about 600 million market cap. We've actually had a pretty good run in the last month. Apparently, we're the best performing mining stock in London, up 73% this month. It's amazing what an investment from BHP will do to your share price. We're well funded. We have 40 million US in the bank at the minute. In terms of our shareholder base, we have Newcrest as our largest shareholder at 14.5%. They have a board seat which is filled by Craig Jones. It's a non-blocking stake. We also have BHP, as I said. They bought Guyana Gold stake very recently. It's a straight-up shareholding. They have no special rights. They don't have a board seat. So Solgold moved to Ecuador in 2012, which was a little while before all the majors came flooding in. So it's given us a first mover advantage and the ability to become the largest and most active explorer in the country. We have 72 concessions granted already, and we actually have another 100 in the application process at the minute. We also have 84 exploration geos on the ground, which is quite a big number. So we feel that we have an unrivaled development pipeline. As Ron mentioned, Ecuador is a positive and supportive mining jurisdiction, and we have very good relationships with the local communities and at a government level. We have a very experienced board and management. I think it's something that everybody always says, but our technical team has won many industry international awards. And our CEO is Nick Mather, is significantly invested. He owns just over 5% of the company. Cascabel is our flagship project. It's in northern Ecuador. It's our flagship project because it's the most developed. Now that we're spending more time looking at our regional program, we're actually thinking that Cascabel might not be actually the best project in our portfolio, which is quite incredible considering Cascabel is already a world-class project. So we own 85% of the project. TSXV listed Cornerstone Capital own the remaining 15%. They're debt funded through to the end of feasibility. We have 12 rigs operating on the project at the minute. We get through about 10,000 meters of drilling a month. We're now up to 145,000 meters. We released our maiden resource statement at the beginning of this year for the Alpala prospect, which was just over 1 billion tons at 0.68% copper equivalent. We're targeting an update at the end of this year, which is looking to double the resource. So we're looking at 10 million tons of copper and 25 million ounces of gold. Also, in terms of news flow, we will be releasing our PEA at the beginning of next year, and those economics will be based around the updated resource, so not the numbers that are currently in the market. In terms of our register, I've talked through it already, but we're, as I said, well-funded, and we have strong support from two majors and also growing institutional support. We brought BlackRock and JPM onto the register last year. Can you go next slide? Okay, so on the front of the presentation, you'll notice that we say that we're an emerging copper-gold major. So from an exploration company, how we're going to get there. From a corporate level, we're looking to strengthen the shareholder base with more institutional support and also augment the board and management skills with development capabilities. In terms of Cascabel, we're focusing on defining the breadth of the high-grade core, as that's where we'll start the project, but also continuing to grow the overall resource. Again, looking to demonstrate the excellent economics in the PEA next year. And also in terms of funding, Cascabel is a big project. We're looking at about 2.8 billion initial capex. So how do we go about funding that ourselves? So we're looking at putting together a full conditional funding package, which will have an equity component, a debt component, and then royalties and streaming. So we're talking to various parties about that at the minute. But also another strategy that we have in terms of getting ourselves into cash flow and ultimately funding the development of Alpala is our new Go for Gold strategy, which is emerging through our regional projects. We have 2 potentially very high-grade gold epithermal projects, again in northern Ecuador, very close to Cascabel. These are usually much quicker to develop, cheaper and easier to finance. So that's high on the agenda at the minute, and I'll talk a little bit more about that project shortly. Next slide. I won't talk too much more about Ecuador, but the mining industry is becoming the country's second pillar in the economy. But it's not just about the political environment, it's also about the geology. Next slide. So just to try and demonstrate the prospectivity of Ecuador, Chile produces half of the world's copper. And if you place Ecuador over northern Chile, you're looking at 25% of the world's copper production. And the geology is much the same. Next slide. Okay, so on to more about Cascabel. One of the biggest things that we talk about is the logistical advantages of Cascabel, and that's in comparison to some of these big projects in Chile. We think we can actually deliver this project for about half the capex as what you can in Chile, and that's due to the excellent infrastructure that we have around us. We're a 3-hour drive from Quito. You can see the railway line running across the top of the tenement. We have cheap hydropower. You have the deep water port at Esmeraldas, and we also have abundant water and a labor force. Next slide. This is our maiden resource. I won't talk too much about it, mainly because it's pretty outdated. The resource that will be coming out in December, we're, as you can see, looking to double it. As I said, this resource was based on 53,000 meters of drilling, and we've tripled the amount of drilling. We've done a huge amount this year, so it's an exciting thing to look out for the end of the year. Next slide. So I can't talk too much about the numbers, obviously, because it's not yet in the public domain, but you can, this graphic goes some way to showing what we're looking at in terms of expansion. So the grey is the maiden numbers, and the red is the update. There's obviously more drilling to go into this and more assays, so the red will expand even more. Next slide. So the previous slide was the overall resource. This is the high-grade core, so again, you can see the increase. Next slide. So we're looking to develop this as a block cave mine, predominantly because the environmental footprint is much smaller than a open pit. And so that's a 3-kilometer spiral decline straight onto the high grade, and that's how we would start the project. Next slide. So this is our regional program. As I said, we have 72 concessions. Out of those 72, we have highlighted 10 priority projects, and we've actually already dropped some concessions as well, because we really want to show to the Ecuadorian government that we're not just land banking, we do actually want to develop these projects. So Blanca and Rio Amarillo are the projects that I highlighted earlier in terms of the high-grade epithermal gold. They're in northern Ecuador. We are just waiting for the final environmental permits to come through, and as soon as the day we get those, drills will start drilling on those projects. So again, an exciting thing to look out for. The bottom 4 are what we believe to be a new porphyry belt down in southern Ecuador, very close to Lundin. And again, there are priorities for our drill targets. Sustainability. Obviously, Ecuador being an emerging mining nation, sustainability is hugely important, and it's the first thing. Our social team is the first people on the ground. We have a plant nursery for reforestation, and we also have lots of productive projects. We have a workforce of 450 people, and that's 97% Ecuadorian. Of our 84 geologists, they're 30% women. So just to wrap up, Solgold is building an integrated copper-gold exploration, development, and mining company. We have the team and the resources to develop the company, and we're very positive about Ecuador. Thank you.